The sun was just starting to make the streets of Usulután warm when the president's big cars stopped in front of the town's main park. President Nayib Bukele wanted to see the park's new work with his own eyes, even though his bodyguards didn't want him to go. "Mr. President, maybe we can come back another day," said Diego, his head of security. "No," said Bukele, fixing his black cap that he always wore. "I want to see it myself. The people here deserve real help, not just words." There was a group helping homeless people move from the park for a while. Bukele stood far away, watching. Then he saw someone that looked familiar. Javier Herrera. The man sitting on a bench didn't look up. His clothes were old and dirty, and his beard was messy. He looked very different from how Bukele remembered his best friend when they were kids. "We need to go," said Diego again. But Bukele didn't move. He was thinking about when he and Javier were boys. After school, they would sneak off to eat pupusas, cheesy stuffed tortillas, at Señora Teresa's stand. They used to laugh and say hers were the best in all of El Salvador. "Give me a moment," Bukele said quietly. He walked slowly toward the bench. "Javier, is it really you?" This time, the man looked up. His eyes looked tired but still had a little sparkle in them. It looked like he might smile, but then he looked down again, feeling embarrassed. "Keep walking, Nayib," Javier said. "I'm not the same person you used to know." Bukele's heart felt heavy. This wasn't just another meeting. This wasn't just a person without a home. This was Javier, his old friend, the one who stood up for him at school and knew all his secrets. "Mr. President," Diego said again, "the news cameras are arriving." Bukele nodded, knowing the cameras would be there soon. He quietly took out a card and left it on the bench. "Señora Teresa's pupusas are still the best," he said softly. "And I'm still the same friend you used to know, Javier." He walked away, but he couldn't stop thinking. How did Javier end up like this? Why didn't anyone tell him? "Diego," he said as they got in the car, "I want you to find out everything about Javier Herrera." "Anything special, sir?" Bukele looked back at the bench where Javier was holding the card with shaking hands. "Yes," he said. "I want to know how one of the smartest kids in Usulután ended up sleeping on the bench we used to call our second home." The cars drove away, but Bukele's heart stayed behind, full of memories of two boys who once dreamed of making the world a better place, but whose lives had changed in very different ways. Later, at the National Palace, Bukele sat in his office. The golden sun came through the window. His team laid papers on his desk. "What do we know about Javier Herrera?" he asked. Rivera Martinez, the head of social help, answered, "It's a long story, sir. He used to own a pupusa restaurant in San Salvador. It was called Los Delicias de Usulután." Bukele closed his eyes. He remembered that name. Javier had always wanted the best pupusa place in the whole country. "Used to?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. "The pandemic hurt his business badly," Rivera said. "First, he had to close for safety. Then he got into debt. He tried to keep paying his workers, but he was too kind," Bukele said, remembering how Javier always cared about others more than himself. "His family?" Rivera looked sad. "His wife and kids went to the U.S. She said she would send money back, but it didn't work out." Bukele stood up and looked out the window. The streets were busy. He wondered how many people had sad stories like Javier's. "Did we try to help?" he asked. "Yes, sir. 3 times. But he said no. He didn't want help just because he was your friend." Bukele gently hit the glass with his fist. That was just like Javier, proud even when things were very bad. "You know what's funny?" Bukele said. "As kids, he always said I was the stubborn one. I remember one time, we got lost trying to find a shortcut to the market. He just stopped. He didn't finish. The memory made his heart hurt too much. Mr. President, Diego said kindly, I know you care, but if you go visit him again, the other politicians will say bad things. Say what? Bukele asked. That I care about people who are hurting? That I still remember where I came from. The room went quiet. Bukele pulled out an old photo. Two smiling teenage boys stood in front of a pupusa shop. This is Javier, he said. He helped me when no one else would. He taught me that being loyal is more important than money. Now he's sleeping on a bench, and we're here talking like this is just another case. What do you want us to do? Rivera asked. Bukele put the photo back in his pocket and fixed his cap. I want everything. His health, his money troubles, people he's talked to. And one more thing. He stopped at the door. Find Senora Teresa. If anyone knows the real story, it's her. The next morning, Bukele went to Santa Rivera for a new community center opening. The sun was bright. People smiled, and reporters got ready to take photos. But Bukele was thinking about Javier. This is the job training area, said Gloria, the center's director. We already have 50 people signed up. How many used to have their own businesses before they lost everything in the pandemic? Bukele asked. Gloria looked surprised. About 60%, sir. And how many said no to help at first? Quite a lot, she said. It's hard to ask for help when you used to be the boss. They stopped at a wall full of happy photos of people who had finished the program. What about the ones who don't want to be in the photos? Bukele asked. The ones hiding because they feel ashamed? An aide came quietly. Sir, the press is ready for your speech. One moment, Bukele said. He looked at Gloria. Do you know the hardest part of being president? He asked. No, sir. What is it? Sometimes, having power makes you feel powerless. You can make rules, open centers, give money, but you can't make someone accept help. The center got busier as people came for the event. Kids, moms, dads, all full of hope. Gloria, I need you to do something for me, Bukele said softly. Make a special program. Quiet. No pictures. No speeches. For people who want to stay hidden. People who need to get back more than just a business. They need to feel like themselves again. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message from Rivera. We found Senora Teresa. Bukele took a deep breath. Things were starting to come together. Mr. President, the speech, said the aide again. I'm coming, Bukele said. But first, he turned to Gloria. One more thing. Add cooking classes to the program. Especially pupusas. Pupusas, sir? Gloria asked. Yes, Bukele smiled. Because sometimes, the best way to help someone get back on their feet is by reminding them who they were when they were standing tall. He walked to the stage where all the cameras were waiting. But in his heart, he wasn't just giving a speech. He was starting something bigger, something that began with a promise to an old friend. Good morning, he said, fixing his cap. Today, we're not just opening a building. We're opening a door for people who feel like all the doors are closed. As the cameras filmed and people clapped, President Bukele thought of someone special. Somewhere in the streets of El Salvador, his old friend Javier needed to hear this more than anyone. The Central Market was waking up. A man walked quietly through the busy cellars. He wasn't wearing his usual black suit or cap. Today, he wore a simple checkered shirt. It was Nayib Bukele, but he didn't look like the president. Would you like some coffee, sir? An old lady asked. No thanks, Donna. I'm looking for someone, he said. He heard from others that Javier came early in the morning to help unload goods. He worked to get food to eat. Senora Teresa had said it was a strong and proud way to live. Javier is like a stray cat now, said an old lady who sold pupusas. He only comes close when he's hungry. If you try to touch him, he runs away. The air smelled like fresh coffee and warm pupusas. Then, Bukele saw him. Javier was pushing a heavy cart full of vegetables. He looked tired and skinny. Need help, friend? Bukele said, walking behind him. Javier froze when he heard the voice. You shouldn't be here, he said. Why not? This market is for me too. For all people in El Salvador. You understand what I mean. Javier kept pushing the cart. The president shouldn't be in the market, pushing carts. I'm not the president right now, Bukele said. I'm just Nayib, your old school friend who still owes you so many favors. Javier stopped and turned around slowly. Favors don't count after 20 years. Yes, real ones do, Bukele said. Like when you saved me from those mean boys in class. Or when you gave me money to buy a new school uniform. That was a long time ago. We were different. Were we? You still look like the same strong and stubborn guy I knew. A seller saw Bukele and began to whisper. More people looked his way. Javier noticed this and started to walk away. Javier, wait, Bukele called. I just want to talk. About what? How does the rich and famous president want to help the poor loser? No thanks. No. I just want us to eat pupusas again. Like old times. Javier stopped for a second. He thought about it. But then he saw more people coming closer, pointing and talking. Pupusas don't taste the same anymore, Nayib, he said, not looking back. Nothing does when someone gives them to you because they feel sorry for you. Go do your job, Javier. I have to do mine. Then he walked into the busy market and was gone. People stared at Bukele and whispered, Isn't that the president? What is he doing here so early? Does he know that cart guy? Diego, Bukele's bodyguard, came out from hiding. Sir, we should leave. This is getting tricky. Bukele nodded, but he walked over to the stall where Javier left the cart. How much does he get paid for today's work? He asked the stall owner. Oh, no, sir, he hasn't. How much? $5. Bukele gave a $20 bill. When he comes back, give him this. And tell him that real debts can't be paid with money. As Bukele walked away, an old woman whispered, That man must be someone really important for the president to come looking for him. No, Bukele said softly. Just someone who showed me that being important isn't about your job. It's about being loyal and kind. Later that night, in a small pupusa shop in San Miguel, Javier sat quietly. It was almost midnight. The shop was almost empty. You're going to keep looking for me, aren't you? Javier asked. You know me, Bukele said, sitting across from him. I'm more stubborn than a mule. The shop owner walked over, looking nervous. She had recognized the president. 2 revueltas and 2 chicharron, Javier said before she could speak. And 2 cola champagne. Like the old days, right, Nayib? Bukele smiled. It was the first time he saw a little of the old Javier again. Want to know what happened? Javier asked as the lady left. Why do I, who had a good business, now sleep on benches? He took out a wrinkled photo. It showed a small shop with a sign, Las Delicias de Usaluten. I had 15 workers, he said proudly. That means 15 families counted on me. When the sickness came, I told them not to worry. I said we'd make it through. I used all my savings. I sold my car. My wife's pretty jewelry. Even my mom's wedding ring. I did it all to keep the shop open and my workers fed. Why didn't you ask for help? From me? Or the government? Javier gave a small, sad laugh. People were already saying I got help because you were my friend. If I took help, maybe I could have saved my shop. But I would have lost the only thing I had left, my pride. Bukele drank his soda. He stayed quiet for a moment. Lucia left first, Javier said. I don't blame her. I told her we would live a big, happy life. Instead, I gave her a sad one. She took the kids. She said she'd send money for me to come later. But nothing. It's hard for them over there too. They are barely getting by. Javier took a bite of his pupusa. He chewed slowly. You know what's worse? I miss them more than I miss my business. More than I miss my house. More than I miss my pride. Javier. No, let me finish. I need you to understand why I can't take your help. He leaned closer. When you lose everything, you learn something. Falling down doesn't hurt as much as when people feel sorry for you. And what about friendship? Bukele asked. That hurts too. Real friendship died 20 years ago when we took different paths. You became president. I became someone people laugh at. You're wrong, Bukele said, his voice strong. Real friendship doesn't die because of time or distance. And you're not a loser. You are an example of what it means to be loyal and strong. Javier looked up, surprised by how serious Bukele was. I'm leaving for the U.S. tomorrow, he said suddenly. A cousin found me a job in Houston. He says I can live with him. You're running away, Bukele said. I'm starting again. Somewhere no one knows me. Somewhere I'm not the president's failed friend. Bukele took out his phone and showed a picture to Javier. It was an old photo of two happy boys standing in front of Senora Teresa's pupuseria. See these two kids? Bukele said. One of them promised the other they would always help each other. Now that kid is the president. And he still remembers that promise. Promises from when we were kids don't really count in real life, Nayib, Javier said. No, Bukele said, standing up. Those are the promises that matter the most. He left some money on the table and walked toward the door. He stopped for a moment and looked back. Your flight is at 10 in the morning, right? Javier nodded, surprised. Good, Bukele said. That means we still have time to see if you really want to leave, or if you're just running away. Later, Bukele stood in a meeting room in La Libertad with his team of ministers. Ministers, he said, I need all of you to listen carefully. The sun was already up. The afternoon sunlight came through the windows as everyone looked at him, waiting. In 6 hours, we need to start a new plan to help our country's economy, Bukele said, showing some charts on the screen. But I don't want just numbers. I want real stories. I don't want statistics. I want to see lives getting better. The Minister of Economy spoke up. Mr. President, with all respect, we already have programs that help. Our programs are missing something very important, Bukele said, cutting him off. They don't understand what it means to be truly proud to be Salvadoran. Rivera Martinez, who had been learning about Javier's case, walked up holding a folder. We found more than 1,000 small business owners who said no to help from the government, she said. Not because they didn't need help, she added, but because of their pride, Bukele finished. People like pupuseria owners who would rather close their shops than look like they're begging. The Minister of Finance looked through the papers. You want to make a program just for food businesses like that? I want a program that brings back more than just businesses, Bukele said. I want a program that brings back people's pride. Mr. President, said Diego from the back of the room, the news is talking about you visiting the market. If we do this now, what will they think? They'll think I care about the people who've lost everything, Bukele said. And that's fine with me. The room got quiet. Bukele walked to the window and looked out at the city. You know what a lady told me at the market? She said, pupusas taste different when people give them to you out of pity. And she's right. We can't fix this with just money. He turned to face the group, his eyes serious. I want new training centers for small businesses in every part of the country. But they won't be like the ones we have now. These will be special. How will they be different? Asked the Minister of Education. The teachers will be people who lost their businesses, but then built them back again. People who know how hard it feels to fail, but also how good it feels to succeed. Rivera smiled. She understood. You want people who used to be victims to become teachers. Exactly. And we'll start with pupuserias. Because when a Salvadoran loses their pupusa business, they lose more than money. They lose a piece of who we are. The Minister of Economy raised his hand. How long will this take to start? It should have started yesterday, Bukele said. There are people making big, sad decisions right now. We can't wait. Just then, an assistant ran into the room and gave a note to Diego. He looked at it and frowned. Mr. President, there are reporters waiting outside. Someone told them about our plan. Bukele fixed his cap on his head and looked ready. Good. Let's tell everyone about it. Right now. But first, he turned to Rivera. When's the next flight to Houston? In 4 hours, sir, she answered. Perfect. That gives us enough time to show someone that El Salvador still needs him and his pupusas. The cabinet quickly got to work as Bukele looked at his phone. He saw the photo of 2 smiling boys in front of the pupuseria. That photo reminded him, this wasn't just about politics, it was about a promise he made when he was a kid. Later, the press room in Santa Tecla was full of flashing cameras. Bukele stood at the podium as reporters asked many questions. Mr. President, is this new program just to help one of your friends? Are you using the country's money for one person? Who is the man from the Central Market? Bukele raised his hand, and the room became quiet. I want to tell you a story, he said, taking off his black cap. 2 days ago, I saw a man sleeping on a bench. He lost his business because he kept paying his workers during the pandemic. He said no to government help because he didn't want to feel special or lucky. The reporters quickly wrote down what he was saying. And guess what? He's not the only one. There are thousands of proud Salvadorans like him. People who would rather sleep outside than feel like they're taking charity. A reporter raised her hand. But Mr. President, the pictures from the market. Yes, I knew him. We were kids together. And I'm happy about that. Because he reminded me of something we all need to remember. Pride and dignity don't have a price. Just then, Bukele's phone buzzed. It was a message from Diego. Javier's not at the market. No one has seen him since last night. Bukele kept calm, but inside, he felt nervous. This program isn't just for one person, he said. It's for every Salvadoran who lost something more important than money, their sense of purpose. Another message came through. Your flight to Houston is confirmed. Leaves in 2 hours. If you ask me whether I know someone who's been hurt by all this, the answer is yes. And I'm proud of that. Because he showed me that the biggest problem is not about money, it's about trust. Camera lights flashed even more as Bukele leaned closer to the microphone, speaking from the heart. To everyone out there, to those who lost their business, their dreams, I want to say, your pride is not a bad thing. It's your power. And this plan is not charity. It's a chance to be part of the solution. A journalist asked one more question. And the man from the market, Where is he now? Bukele looked straight at the camera, hoping Javier was watching. He's where many Salvadorans are, at a moment where they're not sure what to do next. Some think they have to leave to feel proud again. But I want to say this, no Salvadoran should feel like they need to leave their country to feel worthy. At the door, Diego appeared and pointed at his watch. Time was running out. This meeting is over, Bukele said loudly. Because someone needs to hear this message, not through a phone or TV, but face to face. He walked out of the room quickly. Reporters shouted questions, but Bukele didn't stop. He had something important to do. The airport? Asked Diego as they got in the car. No, Bukele answered. We're going to where it all started, the little pupusa shop of Dona Teresa in Usulután. But sir, the flight. Javier's not getting on that plane, Bukele said, sure of himself. Before he leaves, he needs to fix something from his past. And there's only one place where he can do that. The president's cars drove away, leaving the reporters confused. They didn't know this story was going to be much more than just about a new government plan. Dona Teresa's pupusa shop in Usulután was closed, but there was a soft light shining inside. Bukele told the driver to stop the car a block away. Wait here, he said to Diego. I have to do this by myself. The shop looked old and worn. The walls were peeling, and the sign was faded. But the smell of warm pupusas cooking was still the same as when he was a boy. It's closed, said a voice from inside when he knocked. Even for the president, Dona Teresa? There was a quiet moment. Then footsteps. The door opened. A kind old woman in an apron stood there. I knew you'd come, she said, moving aside. He's sitting at the corner table. The same one you both used as kids. Javier sat at the table, a suitcase by his feet. He hadn't touched his plate of pupusas. How did you know I'd come here? Javier asked without looking up. Because it's what I would have done, Bukele said, sitting down across from him. You needed to say goodbye to the place where everything began. Dona Teresa brought more pupusas and 2 bottles of cola champan, just like when they were kids. Look at you, Javier said at last. The president canceling everything just to come after a guy like me. You're not just a guy. You're a friend. And I came to stop you before you do something you'll regret. Regret? I'm just trying to have a better life. Running away from who you really are is the wrong kind of change, Bukele said as he picked up a pupusa. Remember what you used to say? Pupusas are like life. If you don't burn your hands making the dough, you won't enjoy the taste, Javier finished the sentence. A small smile appeared on his face. We were wise little kids. And you were right. That's why this new program. I don't want your program, Javier said quickly. I don't want people thinking I'm weak. Weak? Bukele leaned in closer. You lost your business because you cared more about your workers than money. That's not weak. That's being a leader. A leader with no business. No family. Nothing. A leader who people still need, Bukele said. How many people have lost their shops, just like you? Who better to help them than someone who truly understands? Dona Teresa came back with an old photo in a frame. It showed 2 happy boys, their faces covered in dough, standing in front of the pupusa shop. You too, she said. Always dreaming of helping El Salvador. One doing it from the top, and the other from the bottom. You need each other. Javier looked at the photo, and his eyes filled with tears. I'm not that boy anymore, Teresa. No, Bukele said. You're stronger now. Smarter. And the country needs you. They all heard a loud plane fly over them. The flight to Houston, Javier whispered. The program has already started, Bukele said. Javier looked at the picture again. Will it really help others like me? Only if they have the right guide. Someone who knows that real strength comes from building up others. Javier looked at his suitcase, then the photo. Finally, he looked at his old friend and said, I'll do it, but only if no one gives me special treatment. And no one knows we're friends. Too late for that, Bukele smiled. But how about this? We tell them the truth. We're just two boys from Usulután who never forgot home. Dona Teresa clapped quietly. Now, are you going to let those pupusas get cold? Javier picked one up. He took a bite. It was the first real food he'd enjoyed in days. They taste different, he said. Less flavor? Asked Dona Teresa. No, he said, looking at Bukele. They taste like a new beginning. The culinary training center in San Salvador was full of noise and people. In the big kitchen, Javier wore a new apron. 20 people were watching him closely. Many of you, he said while rolling dough in his hands, think you're here to learn how to make pupusas. You're wrong. The students looked at each other, surprised. You're really here to remember who you are, Javier said kindly. The pupusas are just the way to help you. At the back of the room, Bukele stood and watched quietly. He wasn't in his fancy black suit. He looked just like anyone else. You see this dough? Javier held up a piece. If you touch it with fear, it falls apart. If you touch it with anger, it gets too hard. But if you make it with dignity, with pride and care. He shaped a perfect pupusa. It was like magic. A woman sitting in front raised her hand. She used to own a restaurant. But we already know how to make pupusas. What we need is money, she said. For what? Javier asked gently. To start another business that might fail when things get hard again? The woman looked down, a little sad. Javier walked over to her. What's your name? Clara, she said softly. I had one employee. I paid them every dollar I owed before I closed my shop. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. Javier smiled and looked at the rest of the group. See? That's what makes us different. We didn't lose our businesses because we were bad at them. We lost them because we were good people. From the back, Bukele nodded, proud. Now, Javier said, everyone, take some dough. We're going to make pupusas, but while we cook, I want you to tell your stories. Because every story is a lesson. And every lesson helps us build something new. For the next few hours, the smell of pupusas filled the kitchen, and the stories began. Stories about being brave. Stories about being kind. Stories full of hope. My husband said I was crazy, an older woman said, for selling my wedding ring to pay my workers. I sold my car to keep my shop open one more month, said another. I slept in my pupusa place because I couldn't pay rent, said a young man. Javier listened to each person. He helped them with their hands, their cooking, and most of all, with their hearts. At the end of the class, the students had left. Javier stayed behind, cleaning the stoves. Bukele walked into the kitchen. He smiled, saying nothing, because he didn't have to. The new beginning had already started. Javier stopped for a moment. It felt like coming home. Did you see their eyes when they told their stories? He asked. Yes, said Bukele. They had the same bright look we had when we dreamed about helping El Salvador. Bukele took one of the last pupusas, took a bite, and smiled. These are different, he said. Do they taste better? Asked Javier. No, they have a better reason behind them. Javier looked around the kitchen. The griddles were still warm. There was some dough left, and the air still felt full of stories. You know what's crazy? Javier said. A week ago, I was sleeping on a bench. I thought my life was over. And now? Asked Bukele. Now I understand. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Bukele put his hand on Javier's shoulder. The program will grow. It will go to every part of the country. We'll need more teachers. And more stories to share, said Javier. And more Salvadorans to remember who they really are, said Bukele. They walked out of the center as the sun set over San Salvador. The day was ending. But for 20 people, it was just the start of a new beginning. Welcome to Las Delicias del Pueblo. Javier cut the ribbon at the first community pupuseria in Usulután. The crowd clapped as the smell of fresh pupusas filled the street. It wasn't a fancy place, but it was full of pride. On the walls, pictures of people who finished the program smiled. Their stories of hard work and never giving up were written next to them. In the kitchen, 6 of Javier's old students worked with big smiles and happy hearts. This place, Javier told the reporters, isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who felt lost and found their way again through our traditions. From the back of the shop, Bukele stood watching. He wore normal clothes like everyone else. Next to him, Dona Teresa wiped away a happy tear. See how their eyes shine again? She whispered. Just like when they were kids. No, said Bukele. They shine even brighter now. Javier walked through the tables, greeting people and telling stories. He stopped when he saw a woman and 2 kids walk in. Lucia, he whispered. It was his wife and children. We saw the news in Houston, she said, her eyes shining. The kids said they wanted to try their dad's pupusas. The children ran to hug Javier while Lucia looked around the shop with wonder. It's different from our old pupuseria, she said. It's better, said Javier. Because now it's not just a business, it's a place for second chances. Bukele walked over to the family. Is that your famous friend, the president? Lucia asked with a smile. No, said Javier. Just a kid from Usulután who never forgot where he came from. Dona Teresa came with a plate of pupusas. The same ones you 2 made when you were little, she said, putting the plate down. But now, you make them with more wisdom. Javier picked up a pupusa, broke it in half, and gave a piece to Bukele, something they used to do as kids. You know what's craziest? Javier said. A month ago, I thought I had lost everything. And now? Asked Bukele. Now I know that sometimes you have to lose a dream to find your true purpose. The day went on, and more people came to the shop. There were business owners and people trying to start again, all sitting at the same tables, sharing food and stories and hope. Remember what we always said as kids? Asked Bukele as they looked around. Pupusas are like El Salvador, Javier said. If you don't believe in the dough, it won't stay together. Lucia walked over to the kids. And now? What's next? She asked. Javier looked around. His family was back, he had a new goal, and he had found his pride again. Now, he said, we keep needing the future. But this time, we do it together. Night came to Usulután, and at Las Delicias del Pueblo, the pupusas kept cooking on the griddle. Each one was more than food. It was a reminder that in El Salvador, pride and hope, like good masa, always find a way to rise again. Bukele left quietly, but before he walked out, he looked back one last time. Javier was surrounded by family and students. He was teaching them how to make pupusas, telling stories, and helping them build better lives. Mission accomplished? Asked Diego, waiting at the door. No, said Bukele. It's just beginning. Because sometimes, the best ideas don't come from government offices, but from the real stories of real people. And as the president's cars drove away, the smell of pupusas and the sound of laughter stayed in the air of Usulután. A sweet reminder that real change, like the best recipes, takes time and lots of heart. If you liked this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.